So my friend Tyler is here again, and we are going to do a 3000-watt inverter. As you can see, he's got a Magnum 1000-watt inverter. So we're going to be replacing that with the 3000 and moving around to solar controller, reconfiguring that. We have to run new 2-aught cable for the new inverter, and we have to run new Romex 10 gauge 120 VAC wire from the breaker box to the new inverter. But the first thing we want to do is we want to turn off the power. So we've turned off the house battery switch. We've tripped the circuit breakers for his Kisei DC to DC charger and his ample start. Now we want to shut down the power for the solar. So the first thing you always do when you're cutting off your solar, so you don't do any damage to your solar controller, is you first trip your solar panel power circuit breaker. And in this case, we installed a circuit breaker instead of a switch going to the battery. Oh, no, it's the reverse. We put a circuit breaker for the switch that we could have just used a switch for the solar panel power, but we used a circuit breaker. And I like using circuit breakers because you can also use them as a switch. And then we have a circuit breaker going from the solar controller to the battery. So you always want to turn your solar panel power off first, and then trip your circuit breaker for the battery, and that kills all the power. You saw the light go out there. And then for the Lithionics battery, it has its own power button right up here on the top, and you just press that. I think you have to press and hold it for 3 seconds. Press it till the light goes out. And now the battery is off. So now we've killed all the power, but there is still some residual power. It takes a while to bleed off because capacitors, in the inverter and different components, they hold power. So you still always want to treat your red wires as if they have, hot voltage, just to make sure you don't short anything out. So now we're going to remove, number one, we're going to remove all this in here. I don't think I'm going to remove this inverter until I deal with this wall. This wall is actually riveted in place, so it isn't easy to remove like it is in the newer models. So I'm probably just going to take my electric cutter grinding tool and cut a big square out of the panel, so we can get the panel out of the way. I'm probably gonna leave a little flange just in case we want to go back with another panel, but we'll decide that when we get towards the end of how we want to put everything back in place. All right, so we'll get to dismantling all of this and getting it out of here. Okay, just to show people how to disconnect the Magnum, you have to take, this is your case ground down here, so you have to disconnect that. I unplugged, you have two plug ports here. You unplug this one, and then this is the remote. You unplug that one. Then you take these little plastic covers, you just pry them off by these ears. Whoops. Anyway, you just pry off these little covers off the screws, and then you just use a 13mm and loosen these nuts so you can pull these off. And then underneath, it's hard to see, but way underneath there, the yellow and white wires, those are the 120 volt wires. And I'm going to need to, pull the pull this inverter off the wall in order to get to those. And the inverter is actually mounted with 4 screws, those 2 there on the top, and then there's 2 more on those ears that are sticking out of the unit, 2 more down there. So you have to remove those, and then the whole thing will fall out. So that's how you get rid of the Magnum. Okay, so it is possible to get the old 1000 out without removing the wall, but we definitely have to remove the wall to go back with a 3000. And then these are the this is the compartment for the wire for this is the 120, the wires that run from the breaker box. Put that back on in the room. Anyway, you can see them all. Taped in here. So we have to now this is only one circuit. So on the 1000-watt inverter, Leisure puts I think they put the entertainment outlet, so you can run the TV off the inverter. I think it's 1 outlet at the galley and 1 outlet in the bedroom. So it's, it's very few outlets, like those 3 outlets on this circuit. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull all this apart and pull these wires out, and we will use these. Oh, they've actually got, oh yeah, and this. So what is done here is Leisure uses a 12-gauge wire as the input to the inverter, and then they use 2 15-gauge wires, 15 amp, which are 10 gauge, no, not 10 gauge, these are 14 gauge. Yellow is 12 gauge, white is 14 gauge. So you use these 14 gauge wires for your outlets. So what we're going to do is remove this, and we're going to put the 3 yellow wires, white, black, and bare. We're going to put like wires together, and we're going to wire these together in parallel to complete the circuit. And then we're going to move that breaker, because these are connected to a breaker. This yellow is connected to the breaker, so when you hook the white, which is the output of this, when you hook these together in parallel, that completes the circuit to the breaker. And then we're going to attach that, put that breaker on the new inverter bus bar. So the circuit, the outlets supplied by this inverter for this circuit will be completed and powered by the new inverter. Okay, so I will come back and show you all these wires disconnected when I get that done. All right, so I got all the wires disconnected, and now might be better to pull them out one at a time if I can. Here, pull on this one. Okay. All right. So where's that little cap? We'll put it back on. Okay. So And for information, if people have a 1000-watt inverter, here's your little reset circuit breakers. So whenever you trip off power, these are the breakers that you need to come and toggle for the reset, in addition to the possibility of breakers in your breaker box. Now what we're going to do is we're going to be putting a junction box on the ceiling, and I'm going to be putting all these into a box, and then I'm going to be using wire ties or wire nuts, or I might just use WFCO connectors, but either way, wire nuts or WFCO connectors. Put the light colors together, so all the blacks together, all the whites together, and all the bare wires together, and that completes this circuit back to the 15 amp breaker in the breaker box. So I'll show you, more on that when I actually do it. But in the meantime, I'm just going to tuck these back here until I'm ready to deal with them. All right, so that's done. All right, so here's what this is 2018, right?
Yes.
So this is what the empty inverter bay and battery bay of a 2018 Leisure Wonder Murphy bed looks like. So now I have to get to removing this wall. Like I said, I'm just going to use my grinder and cut a section of it out so we can work. Okay, I used my grinder and cut the panel out of the side. Now I'm going to clean all the burrs off of it with my file. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut 2 big vent holes here in the back for the new 3000-watt inverter. Okay, we still had to do some more work. It turned out that we had to take this top lip off. Oh, this side's a better view. Okay, I had to remove this top lip because we still could not get the inverter in. And then we just left that last flange piece just because it's easy. So now we're ready to test fit the inverter and see where we cut our vents. We have to cut vents back there, so we'll draw those in and cut them out. Okay, so we cut a new big ventilation area in the back, and Tyler, oh yeah, okay, and oh, here's that piece. Let's have that piece. Okay, this is the piece that we cut out of the back. It was actually like this, and this basically splash guard was on the exterior of the compartment. So we're going to reinstall that on the lower half of this hole, since it's closest to the ground and closest to the possibility of being splashed. And then I bought this nice aluminum grill, or yeah, I'm going to call it a grill, that I'm going to cut a nice square piece out of, to go over that hole and make it look nice. And we'll be done with our modifications for the new 3000-watt inverter in the inverter bay.
Where you gotta go.
Okay, we put that splash guard on the lower part on the lower part of the of our vent opening. Now I'm going to put this nice grill up, and that will complete our modification for ventilation for the new 3000-watt inverter. Okay, I've got the screen in place over our vent, and now we're going to turn to our cabling. we have to replace this small inverter cable back here because its cable size is too small. We have to put in 2/0, and we have to replace this 150 mega fuse with a 250 amp mega fuse. And then of course we'll be running a new heavier ground. The ground bolt was right there, so we'll be doing that. I'll come back when I get the cables prepped for that. Okay, I used a 13mm to loosen these bolts. And this is your mega fuse block. So you have a number of things that are direct feed. Okay, you can pull this red back through. Can you get it?
There's a one of those straps back here.
All right, we'll come back. Okay, so this is what the mega fuse block looks like. You just slide on a new 250 amp mega fuse. You put your lock washer, and then you put your nut back on. And I'll tighten it down after I get my new cable. But now we're going to run a new what's called 2/0, 2/0 sized cable for the inverter connection, and we're just going to run it from here, probably on around the front here to hook to the front of the inverter. So I'm going to cut my own cable and make that, and then I'll also make a ground cable for the front of the inverter. So I'll go do that and come back. Okay, now I'm going to be putting this junction box so I can run these wires into here. You run them through the end, and then I will connect them all together and put a little cover on it. So I'm just going to screw that into the ceiling. Probably move it up more. Okay, so I'll do that and come back. Okay, so I've run the wires into my junction box, and now I'm connecting like colors. And whenever you use these wire nuts, you want to make sure that you twist the wires around and around to make a good connection. And then I'm going to be wrapping them with electrical tape. So now I still have to put the black ones together and the copper ones together, and then I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, so I've got these all done. Now I just need to get them up inside. Put everything in the box. And then put my nice cover on. Okay, so now I'm going to put this cover on, and we'll be done with completing the circuit for the circuits that were connected to the old inverter, and we'll come back. Okay, so here's the junction box now. For that, and now I've completed all the circuits for the old inverter, and we're done with that. Now it's time to install the 3000W inverter, so I can figure out all my wire lengths. And I've already gone ahead and put the screws in for where we need it. And I'm going to notch out the holes for the bottom for these so I can just slide the inverter in place. And then I only have 2 holes in the top, 2 holes up here in the top that I have to find to put the inverter in. So we will do that and come back. Okay, as I said, I cut notches where the holes were so I can just slide them over the screw heads that I've already put in the wall. Alright, so now we have the inverter in. You probably can't see it, but I we put it on the notches first, or put the notches on the screws on the bottom first, and then it made it easier. We already had the holes for the top, so it made it easier to find them. Okay, so whenever you're handling the inverter, you always want to make sure that this little button is popped out. You can push it in or you can pop it out. You need to leave it popped out, or your remote control that you add won't work with it. Okay, now we want to get in to the back of the inverter, and these are all of our lever lock connectors for the 120 AC side, and then these inside here, these are the connections for the negative cable to the battery and the positive cable to the battery. So we're going to run a positive, we're going to run a 2/0 or 2/0 cable from this position over here to the top of the mega fuse. So I have to, you know, pull a strand to do that. And then I'm going to be also pulling, and this is the size of the cable, so I'm also going to be pulling a black one from what was the ground bolt right there, which we'll reinstall over here to the negative position. So let's see what I got for cable. So I'm just getting a measure of running the cable, and I also have to put in a battery switch on that cable. So one end of this cable will go from here around the front here and to the switch. So I'll have to plan where I want to put the switch, and then I'll be running a shorter piece of cable from the switch to the actual positive. And then I have to do the same. I have to get a piece of black cable and measure from where it's going to go there to where it comes into this, and put the lugs on it, and then we'll have that to install. So we'll do that and come back. Okay, so I have installed the negative cable, and we've reattached it to the ground bolt. There's wires on the other side. There's actually a cable that grounds, that goes from that bolt to the chassis frame to ground it on the chassis. Then I repositioned my negative battery cable so it can go up to where the batteries were, so that's good. This is my solar cable. These are my solar cables, so all that's set up. Okay, so now I'm running a positive cable from this 250 amp mega fuse connection to this switch and to this positive terminal on the inverter. So we'll do that. Oh, and this cable right here, it's actually 26 inches, but I think you could get away with a standard 24-foot pre-made, 24-inch pre-made cable. So I'll put a link to that in my guide for people to, buy a standard cable. All right, we'll come back with the positive connections. But let me hook this up first. Okay, this is the case ground for the inverter. This is the original 6-gauge wire that came with that was connected to the Magnum inverter. And that's fine for for this 3000w inverter. And it connects with this bolt right up here on the top of the inverter. It's hard to see. Okay, so it goes right up here on the top. Anyway, so I need 2 hands to do it, but this shows you where that connector goes. It goes right on the top of the inverter, and it's a 13 millimeter. Connected to the Mega Fuse, and this cable ended up being 30 inches, so you can use a standard 36-inch cable, which a pre-made 36-inch cable, and I'll put a link to that. And then I used a piece that's like about a 10-inch piece over here, and I think you can get a pre-made cable that's about 9 inches, so I'll give you a link to that one. And now we can go ahead and hook up, put the Mega Fuse cover back on, because we're all done with that. We still have the battery to reconnect, the solar. Oh, now I have to put on these little connectors for when we run the 120 AC wire, which is a 10-gauge Romex, 10-2 with ground. So we're gonna use these to stabilize the wires in the inverter. Okay, so that's done. All right, so we still have to run the 120 wire, but in the meantime, since it's getting late, we're going to go ahead and put the battery back in, and Tyler's going to come over tomorrow, and we're going to finish this up. So let's get the battery back in. Okay, so the next thing we're going to hook up is we're going to put in this it's called the ACC control. It goes right here. It's a 20-pin connector. I'll give you a link to that. And you take, this is called, this that you unhooked from your Magnum, it's called the DCLD. And there's a little adapter thing in here, but this is the ignition control. This is the ignition control wire that turns the inverter, turn the old Magnum inverter on and off automatically with the house battery switch. And this Xantrex inverter has the very same feature. Put these 2 wires together. In fact, I'm just going to cut off the, why have a splice if I don't need a splice? So I'm just going to cut this off back here. too small. Blue, I think. Can you pick one of those out? Oh. Yeah. Now we're just going to crimp this in here. Alright, where's my heat gun? Okay, and then you plug. Now you have to have it over in this second. Now the link I give you, it has all these wires filled in, and I pull out all the wires except for this one, which is 2 spots in on the bottom corner, and this is the one that I use. This is the connection, the connection pin that you have to mate to down here. So when you plug this in, now we have the ignition control feature, and what that means is whenever you turn on the house battery switch, the inverter control power automatically comes on, and when you turn the battery switch off, it automatically goes off. Oh, and that's called lockout. So when we do the settings, we have to put it on the setting on lockout for inverter control. Okay, so that's it. We'll get the battery put back in now. Okay, so now we got the battery back in place. Okay, and I've got to hook on this terminal, so I'm going to pull it up a little bit. Okay, let's see. Yeah, that's gonna be fine. All right, so where's my wrench? Okay, and then we slide the cover back up. Snap it into place. Okay. Then okay, I've got the negative cable. Uh-oh. Negative cable. this up here. You always put the positive on first and the negative on last. And the reverse when you take it off. To disconnect, you always take the negative off first and the positive off last. You want to go get the mail? Okay, then slide the cap on. Okay, so we're back in business. All right, so the battery's back in place. The only thing we have left is we have to run the 120 VAC wires over here to the inverter, and we have to put the solar controller back in, which we have right here. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to put it right up here on this bar, which I think will be good, but we'll have to make a bracket for it. Okay, so we got the battery back in, the mega fuse cover closed back up, all the 12-volt connections to the inverter, the remote control wire, and so we still have to do the remote, and that's it. So we will come back when we're ready with the next phase. Okay, I have the battery turned on, and all that's back in, and we'll get back to it tomorrow. But I did want to show everybody, if you're wondering how much tools it takes for these projects. Here's our layout. This started neat and orderly, of course, at the beginning of the project. But then you just start grabbing stuff when you need it, and it turns into chaos. So here we are, everything I need to do these jobs. And so invest in tools, people. Get the right tools, and things will be a lot easier for you on all these upgrades.